In today's video, I'm going to take you through the most common mistakes I see when people are writing job applications. Hi everyone, welcome to Talkin. I'm Beck. I'm an assistant principal in Southwest Sydney. Thank you for joining me today for this video. It's going to sound a little bit harsh, and to anyone who's sent me their job application for me to read through and give you feedback, this is in no way a reflection on anyone's skills or abilities or anything like that. Please don't think that I'm addressing you personally. I've looked at lots, and the experience that I'm going to be reflecting on today is the experience from feedback I've had when I've gone for jobs, and when I've sat on panels, as well as all of the professional learning that I've done, and I guess the experiences of executives that I know around me as well who've sat on panels too, and feedback that other people have gotten that I work with or that I've worked with in the past, or just colleagues in general. This is just all around experience there. I'm not targeting anyone specifically. Before I get into it, I want to remind anyone that if you're new here to the channel, welcome. The subscription buttons and everything are just in the description below. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you the link. I'll share the link as well to my videos about writing job applications. Today I'm going to be kind of reflecting on permanent position applications as well as expressions of interest, EOIs. If you're watching this from another state or another country, there will be some differences here. I'm in the Australian system, I'm in the public system, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll probably guess where I work at. But I try to make this very general, very broad, and I have helped people in other states with their applications as well, many successfully. So I'd like to think that this advice kind of applies across the board. So if you haven't watched my other videos about job applications, you can watch this one first and then go do those ones. It's not like it's in any particular order. I can't talk today. And the advice that I'm giving you today in my trusty notebook is not in any particular order either. These are just things that consistently I notice when people have applied for a job, or consistently the ones that people send me personally to ask for advice on. If you contact me, I'm always happy to give advice. I'm not going to give you a copy of my past applications or applications of people I know. I will never do that. And if anyone asks you personally to do that, I recommend against it. It's a very deep and meaningful and time-consuming process to go through the application writing process. However, it's important, it's valuable that you do it yourself instead of just copying and pasting from someone else's application. Not to mention the fact that there is a very good chance that someone on the panel has seen that application before and will recognize it too, and that does not work in your favor. So if anyone asks me, I will show them one criteria point that I've written in terms of format and how it looks, but in terms of content, it really comes down to you, to being unique. But when it comes down to writing everything, these are the common things that I see people doing that are going to work against you when it goes to merit selection or to any kind of panel if it's an EOI panel. Just not making it readable. It needs to be readable, and this comes down to the format of your page, the font style you're using, the font size that you're using, and if you're using any colors. So don't make it font 8. We don't care that there's more information in there if we can't read it. And believe me, when you get a ton of these things coming in, you have to get up at 6 a.m. and read. You have to be up till midnight reading because there's that many of them. One time I tried to escape from all the noise and everything that was around me into a place outside where I could read. And then I found that once I went into that outside space, and it was a little bit brighter on my eyes, I found some particular fonts harder to read and some sizes harder to read. And I'm not blind. Like, I know I wear glasses. It's just for reading though, for concentration things, like I can still see without them. But it just made it harder to read some of those applications because they were so small. And it also means having some of that white space on there, that border space. We teach our kids margins, we need to use margins. If you make it right to the end of the page, 1, you risk it not being printed properly, and 2, I can't write notes in it. If you've done something wonderful, I want to be able to comment on that so I can go back to that application later and say, this was good because, but I can't if I've got post-it notes everywhere and I'll lose a post-it note or something like that. So you're going to make it really readable, easy to read. I recommend, is it Calibri? Font 11, that's fine. And a gap between each criteria point, a white space around it that's easy to write in. If you are choosing to use a cover page, which I recommend you do, making sure that it's not too long or missing vital information. So I guess a cover page can be half a page, especially if it's an EOI and that space is valuable. But make sure it's not missing vital information. You know, things like a CPR training. It's mandatory that we do these things, like your anaphylaxis, those kinds of things that are mandatory. Don't put it as your professional learning. Put that extra professional learning that you did. Did you do L3? Did you do 10? Did you go and do some kind of, I don't know, efficient reading strategies in K-3 or something? That's the stuff that's important. We know we have to do that mandatory training. There's no point putting in there that you've got it, because otherwise you wouldn't be employed. And yeah, just not going, I recommend don't going over a page. You know, put things in columns if you need to. You know, your referees can be in 3 columns, not one listed under the other and then a big blank space on the side. Utilize that space well. Use some lines to divide it up to make it easier to read, and then it doesn't look like a huge long list of things. And when it comes to putting in your work experience, you really don't need to go overboard in detail on what you did. You know, you're a teacher. We know you teach. If you've been at the same school every year, and you're going to put, year 4, year 3, year 2, year 1, that's not as vital as knowing, you know, did you lead whole school sport activities? Did you coordinate the swim scheme? You know, those sorts of things that will lend to those whole school approaches. You could put down there, you know, taught infants, taught primary, was on support, was doing EALD, because those things, you know, are valuable to know because it's different. That kind of stuff that can go on there. If you're going over the one page, go back and revisit that. If you've only been teaching a short amount of time, then that's good information to have, because, you know, you may not have lots to fill in on there. It's just about prioritizing what's more important for the school to know. Oh, for crying out loud, you spell check people. Seriously. And I know it's hard too, because sometimes words will automatically switch to, you know, American spelling, and we won't recognize it. We won't realize it while we're editing, which is why I always print a paper copy and hand edit. I don't know why. My mind just reads it differently. It's like doing reports. I see it differently. You know, and if you've got someone that you trust to read it and give you a bit of an edit, they don't have to give you information on content. They can just be looking at, you know, is my grammar and my spelling and my punctuation correct? Okay, getting into the criteria points. It's really important that you don't leave off results. We always want to know what the results are of what you did. So making sure that, you know, whatever results you put in there, you include measurable results, not in every single criteria point, but put something that's measurable in there. So if you're talking about that you coordinated, you know, the home reading program, what data have you got to back up that was successful? Have you got a percentage of kids that contributed more? Or how many kids attended your reward celebration for it? Or have results gone up since implementing that program? If you can put some data in there to validate what you did, that's your evidence, and that's measurable, and that demonstrates the impact that you had on the school. I was always told, use the so what method. After you've written your criteria point, ask yourself, well, so what? Okay, so you did the home reading program, so what? Big deal, big whoop. Schools do home reading programs all the time. Why is it so important that you did it? So what? And then put in there, why was it important that you did it? You know, what impact did you have? Making sure that your criteria points just don't read like a grocery list. So some of the ones I get in say, I did home reading, I did Premier Spotting Challenge, I did the book week parade, I did, you know, no. So how did you do that? Why did you do that? What was the impact of doing that? And a lot of those things can fall into one criteria point of extracurricular activities or school events. That could culminate into one big criteria point that's really deep and meaningful, that says, you know, I coordinated, you know, special events in line with curriculum and studies in class. I don't know. And then you would say, I did the Premier Sporting Challenge, the book week organisation, home reading, yada, yada, yada. Student impact was blah, blah, blah. I know those things don't technically go all together, but that's just an example of, you know, joining it together under one umbrella of something that you did. And in those, like on your page, you'll know if you're writing a grocery list, if some look bigger and some look smaller, and you're literally putting lots of dot points. The dot points down the side, 3 to 4, maybe 5, depending on, you know, how big your criteria point is. Advice was given to me, if you can't say it in 3 points, you're never going to say it. And, you know, if your criteria is going over 1.5 pages to demonstrate, if you need 1.5 pages to demonstrate how you're achieving one criteria point, it feels like a stretch. Literally, going over that page, it feels like a stretch. So if you can keep it really succinct onto that page, you don't have to list every single thing that you've done. Just list the things that had the greatest impact in your school that you have measurable evidence for. That's the stuff that you need, because if you get to interview, then you can talk about all those other things. If you get to interview though, and you're just re-saying what's in your CV, well, then you've got nothing left to add. I'm saying so many times in these videos. My dad keeps pointing it out. Sorry guys, it's because I'm looking down at my notes and then trying to find my place. So a lot of people make the mistake of just saying what they did. So for example, I said, you know, coordinated the book week parade, and that's it. Not actually saying how they did that. Now, me as an executive, I know a lot goes into coordinating a book week parade. I know you've got to organise notes to go home, you're coordinating with parents, you're getting a community liaison officer out there and rounding up parents to come in and contribute. You've got to organise things with teachers, with the timetable, with the executive, with the office staff. You've got to make sure that kids have costumes. You're making sure that kids who, you know, you can't afford costumes, you've got spares in a bucket or something for them ready on the day so that no one's missing out. You're making sure that classes are tying it in with their literacy studies. That's a lot of work. You shouldn't just be writing coordinated book week parade and then assuming the panel's going to go, oh, they did lots of work to go with that. You need to say it on that bit of paper. You need to project all of that stuff onto a bit of paper, and it feels stupid. I know, it feels stupid to go, I did a good thing. Yes. You need to put that on paper though, because guess what? The other person who's applying is doing that and you're not, and it looks like they're better than you. They may not be, but on paper, it looks like it. So you need to put that stuff down and you need to own it and own the impact of it. Did parent attendance improve because of it? Were students more engaged in their studies because of it? Were students increasing their vocab development because of the fact that they were interacting with their peers in a different environment, in a different setting, in something that was highly engaging? All of those things that could come out of coordinating the book week parade. Again, oh jeez. Sorry guys. Okay. Copying and pasting points. So if you've applied for something before, it's habit to copy and paste and just rehash. And that's fine. I've done the same thing as well. But this is where mistakes happen. You might accidentally copy and paste the exact same point into a different criteria point and not even realize it. It can be tricky. I heard someone's awesome strategy for this the other day. They just color code, and I'm going to be stealing that if I write an application ever again. They color code it so that when it comes up, they can see if they've copied something twice, which is really good. What I do, I like to cut them up. I cut up the criteria points and I lay them out down underneath, and I see which one fits into which criteria that's on there. Because sometimes those points that you have fit into two different criterias. You know, something that you do like the book week parade could be additional events, coordinating additional events, or it could be demonstrating good organizational skills. If those are in two different criteria points, you've got to pick which one does it meet best, because you always need to tie it back to the criteria. Putting the wrong schools, oh seriously, I've seen this. I've seen the wrong principal name, the wrong school, where it's quite obviously been copied and pasted and not even edited. I use a footer, and in the footer I put my name, what the application is for, like what role, if it's assistant principal or whatever, and then the school name. And I make sure that when I'm editing something, that's the first thing that I edit, so I know I'm in the right document. So, and that's a good way to check, you know, that you haven't copied and pasted, you know, something the wrong way, that you're not working in the wrong document. Making sure you're not repeating information. So, like I said about the book week parade example, if you are going to talk about it twice, you need to talk about it in two very different ways. Now, in my other videos, I will tell you that you can put two different things in two different ways. You just need to make sure you're not using the same language, the same words. Tie that language back to the criteria point. If the criteria point is talking about organization, then your point needs to be about organization. Yes, you've mentioned it was book week, but here's all the organization skills and everything that I developed throughout, or that I implemented, and here was the impact, as opposed to running a whole school event. So if it's a whole school event, I'm not going to be talking about my organizational skills in there. I'm going to be talking about my interpersonal skills in there, bringing in the community in there, getting all teachers and students involved, participation rates. It's all about Book Week Parade, but it's 2 different points, 2 different criteria, 2 different experiences. Projecting team results, not individual. So this is very much about recognizing you on that bit of paper. Yes, we know we work in teams. Yes, we know we collaborate. Absolutely. But that school wants to know what you bring to the table, not what the team brings to the table. So if you're using language like, you know, oh, the team worked really well, and as a result, students achieved the grand champions something or other. Yeah, that's great. I'm not employing the team though. So can you function just as well without your team? Is it someone else on the team? Are you dragging the team down, or are you the one leading the team? Are you an active team participant? I want to know what you do as an individual and what you're going to bring to my school. If the criteria is about working as a team, then you will be utilizing that, but you still need to make sure you pull out that individual aspect of what you contributed or what you did inside that team. I mentioned not actually addressing the criteria or linking the language. Just make sure you're doing that. And not being clear about what it is that you did, how you did it, and the results. So in my other videos, I'm very explicit about how you write a criteria point. So in that first line, that first sentence, and I bold this, say what you did very specifically. So not because we are an early action for success school, we do blah, blah, blah. That's not what you did. Straight away, you're talking about, oh, that whole school, it's something else. It's another entity that's out there. And that's why I'm talking about this criteria point. Say, I effectively led L3 in my stage 1 classroom, enhancing student literacy results. Boom. That's what you did. That's your action point. And then you're going to talk about how you actually did that. So that is when you would go into the details of the different strategies you used in the classroom. Did you enhance the learning modes? Did you use, I don't know, quality text or something that was in there? And then the result of that. And if you're talking about L3, you have data. Use the data. How many % of students are on track by the end of term 3? How many students have improved? What is the percentage of improvement? This means you taking time and sitting down and analyzing your data, but you should be doing that anyway. So you would have that information. So you've got to be very, very clear, and you've got to own the achievement. You didn't make that achievement because of L3. You made that achievement because you implemented the strategies. You did not make that achievement because of early action for success. You made that achievement because you implemented the strategies. You need to project that on paper. And avoid using that passive language. So, for example, a passive sentence would sound like, because of the experiences, I was able to refine my skills in blah, 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 blah. You need to get rid of the because of the experience. You need to jump straight in and say, I refined my knowledge and skills in blah, 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 blah. Because if you're starting to attach it to those experiences, you're then saying, oh, it's because of that I did good, not because of me. You need to go straight into what you have and what you're going to bring to the school. If you're saying, oh, those are the experience, the reason I'm really good is those experiences over there, well, they're going to go, I want those experiences over there. Bring those things over here. You're not giving credit to yourself when you do that. And you might feel like, you know, it sounds like you're being an a-hole or whatever by not giving credit to something else. But that bit of paper is not about giving credit to somebody else. You can talk about that at interview if you want to. But in this process, unfortunately, it's very competitive. You need to be able to own it. There's a lot of people use inconsistency. A lot of people have inconsistency in their criteria points in terms of how much they write. So some people have one sentence and then a paragraph. All that shows is that you're more experienced in that part than that part. And it also shows your inconsistencies, I guess, when it comes to you. You might not be, but it looks like it on paper. So you need to make sure that you're keeping things consistent, making it look really succinct, and just keeping it sort of even throughout. So if you're finding that, you've got lots more experience in one criteria point than another, you really need to revisit that criteria point and analyze the language that's in the criteria point and those experiences you have that could work towards it. There's a very good chance, a lot of the times that when I read these things, I say, you've got 8 dot points in one criteria when 2 of those could actually go to the other one that you're missing things on. Just change the language a little bit and match it up. Making sure you're using the correct verb when you're talking about these things. A lot of people say, I participated in. That's lovely. You did participate in it, but Did you coordinate it? Did you lead it? Did you have a more active role in that? And if you did only participate, if you weren't the person leading it or anything like that, make yourself an active participant. I actively participated in this, or I was a positive participant or a positive contributor. And make sure that, you don't just make it sound like you were, part of the herd that was going along with everything. People overusing the bold, the underline, and the italics to emphasize points. So I do say bold for my action statement. When you get to the results of whatever it is you did, I use italics. It just makes it easier to read. The parts that I underline are the keywords I know they are looking for. So if it is an early action for success school, I underline the words, enhanced reading strategies, L3, 10, those things that I know they're looking for. And you can find those things in their school plan and in their annual school report. Those things that they're already doing. So if they are already doing martial arts or something like that, that's something you might want to underline. Not underlining the whole thing. Don't overuse it. It makes it too busy. Just key points, like maybe 2 or 3 words in that criteria point. And the biggest one I find is that a lot of people don't cover those levels of the school across their application. So you don't have to do this in every criteria point, but over the course of your application, the panel should be able to see the impact you've had on students, the impact you've had on teachers, the impact you've had on parents and community overall. So read through it and maybe even go through and get like 3 different highlighters and highlight, okay, I've spoken about students, different color. I've spoken about teachers, highlight. I've spoken about parents and community. And if you find that there's not a good balance of those colors, you might need to reword some things. Now, when it comes down to an EOI, it is much shorter. Sometimes it's only 2 pages and it's really hard to do this. You just need to get a little bit shorter on everything, a little bit more refined. You don't need to go into as much detail. You take away those philosophy points and those projection points, those statements that say, at your school, I will, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you could leave all of that and have one at the end. I think it's important that you do that with each criteria point just down the bottom, which you'll see in my other video. But these are the main mistakes that I've seen people make when they send me their applications to have a read through. Please reread. It's such an important point to reread it, and don't just reread it one night and then leave it. Do it, read it one night, sleep on it, and then look at it the next day. And the next day is when I print it out and I look at it with a pen and I edit it old school, because that's when you'll pick up on mistakes. And believe me, those little things like spelling mistakes and commas and things like that, I wouldn't say they count against you. It stands out. That's all it is. It just stands out. And I've taken people to panel before that have had spelling mistakes and things like that, because we know how time consuming and everything it can be. And we also know about Americanized autocorrect on those things as well. So it just, shows how much you refine your application in terms of those things. But again, if anyone ever wants to send me their application to have a read through, there's plenty of people I've done it for. Have a phone call about it. I'm very honest. What I do won't guarantee you interviews or anything like that, but the majority of people that have spoken to me have come back to me and said, yeah, I got an interview, and some people have actually got the job as well, which is always lovely to hear. So if you've got any other advice for people though writing their applications, pop it in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, thumbs up is always appreciated. I will put my button down here, so if you haven't clicked to subscribe, you just hover over that and the subscribe button will pop up. And at the top here, I'll put my writing job applications video. There's also videos there on interviews and getting feedback. Have a great day, guys. Bye.